process, and it's a very difficult process. But most people that I have talked to, 5 or 10 years later, after they have left the witnesses, state they didn't know why they didn't leave sooner. They should have left 5 years ago. If I would have known what I know today, there's no way I would have stayed as long as I did. Many look upon it as wasted 10 or 20 years. Many people feel, well, it's a stage of my life. I spent 20 years in the witnesses and I regret it, but this is what I did and I can't take back those years now, so therefore all I can do is make the best of where I am now. So it's not easy, but it can be done. But it's interesting that extremely few people, once they leave, extremely few go back to the society, which I think says something. As a matter of fact, those who have left for more than 5 years, it's almost 1 out of 1,000 that return. So it's extremely few. And of those that return, many of them again leave, which says, I think, that in the long run, once they've readjusted, they have no desire to return.
Yes, Jerry, in deference, to the thousands upon thousands of individuals that leave the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society and come out, they were very, very balanced individuals in there, and they came out as balanced individuals. Nevertheless, some of them theologically a little mixed up, of course, and so forth. I have an expression that you can take persons out of the Watchtower, but sometimes it's rather difficult to take the Watchtower out of persons. I'm amazed how many individuals will carry this Watchtower cobwebs almost in their mind for many, many, many years. Some of them even suffering from a measure of guilt that maybe they overstep themselves. Perhaps they really have left God's organization, questions and so on. But gradually, and I think that's where Christians have to be extremely patient with the individual that leaves the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. I think we all walk our road to Damascus at various speeds. I think some run to Damascus, some stride, and some crawl on their hands and knees. And I think we have to give them an awful lot of love and empathy and encourage them to look at biblical Christianity, study the Scriptures, and understand that their salvation is by grace, and that they might abandon any of these hang-ups they might have on a works orientation and legalism and so on, and some of these things that will stay in their character almost from the years and years and years of indoctrination. I think the more we can do to encourage them to relax and enjoy the Scriptures and read the Scriptures and study the commentaries and so forth, and come to a relaxed understanding of the love, actually, that God has for mankind, as manifested through His Son, Jesus Christ. And that direction, too, that encouragement, without being oppressive to them, but rather leading them gently and lovingly to examine these things and reevaluate some of the things that they might still be carrying with them from the past, and look at it with a fresh, clean outlook. And I think this, because I've seen it happen, I see some marvelously well put together Christian individuals, healthy, mentally healthy, and the family in order and so forth. Individuals that left the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, you would never guess that they'd even ever had that experience.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen many too, likewise, who have adjusted quite well, I think, to leaving. And but it's difficult, and I guess my professional background and my orientation has not been spending a great deal of time with those who are well-adjusted, but spending a great deal of time with those who are not well-adjusted. So I guess my experience is more with those who are having problems, and so thus I'm far more aware of the concerns here. And this, I guess, is true with many of us. And as you mentioned, I think it's a good point. We do have to be very patient, because some of these people, it takes years and years to get the Watchtower out of them, so to speak. Many people who were witnesses 20 years ago still adhere to many of the Watchtower ideas, because I think it's like cleaning out a house. You generally don't take everything out and burn it and replace it. You destroy those that you see need replacing. You get rid of a piece of furniture that's broken, that you see it's broken, and you replace it. So likewise with Watchtower ideas, you get rid of those you see a need to replace. And if you don't see a need to replace it, it sits there. And so I think in helping those who were witnesses, we need to help them understand or help them see what needs to be replaced, which is not always easy, because of course many of the Watchtower ideas are certainly very good. Their emphasis on clean living, their emphasis on the importance of the family. They, of course, don't always live up to this, but they do emphasize these things. So there is a lot of positive things that the Watchtower emphasizes. If it was all negative, it wouldn't attract anyone. I think the reason the Watchtower has grown so much is because there is a lot of positive there. It's like the honey with the poison in it. People generally don't eat poison by itself. You've got to put poison in something good. And I think the same thing is true with the Watchtower Society. And so cleaning out this stuff is not easy. It's very difficult. It's very hard to separate the arsenic from the honey. And that's why people stay so long, I think. People stay years after they see clearly that there are things wrong. After one prophetic date failed after another. I talked with a man who was a witness for about 80 years. And I said, now you've lived through 6 or 7 prophetic dates that failed. You saw 1925. You knew that they predicted. Oh yes, they clearly predicted 1925. That's when Armageddon would be here. Very, very clear. And yet you stayed. He stayed until after 1975, and then he left. So I asked him why. Why did you stay for so long after you saw so clearly that what they taught was wrong? He said, well, there was so much to hold me. He said, there was so much good that I couldn't leave. The bad had to become so great before I left, and it did. 1975 was, for him, the last straw, so to speak. But when he did finally leave, I believe he was in his 80s. So it took a lot for him to leave. And for many of us, it takes an awful lot, because there is so much holding power that the Watchtower Society has. And this is what outsiders don't see. They see only the bad. They don't tend to see the tremendous holding power that the society has upon us.
Well, it's clear to me, Jerry, that the experiences that I had and that you had also as elders, and cases that we were involved with on the congregation or at the congregation level is far, far greater and far wider than the average Jehovah's Witness would begin to imagine.
I agree very much so, and I think it's hard for us to sit here really and even begin to relate the tragedy and the suffering of so many, many, many people that were involved in what you might call the snare of the Watchtower. And I just, the past few minutes, have been thinking about the many, many cases I've worked with in the past 10 years and the incredible, untold human suffering of so many, many people whose lives were just simply ruined or at least damaged so much for so long of a period. And it's, I think, the Jehovah's Witnesses are one of the tragedies of this 20th century. And there are just so many problems that they have produced and have wrought, which have carried us right into the time period of today. And there needs to be, I think, more awareness of what's going on, more awareness of what they have done to so many people. We're aware of Jonestown very well, but I don't think many people are aware of the untold tragedy that the witnesses have produced in our time period today. And people need to be aware of this so they can respond to it. And hopefully our discussion here will help a few people become more aware of this heinous, clearly heinous situation.
On that note, it's incumbent upon all of us, those of us that might come into contact with Jehovah's Witnesses, those persons who are in the Watchtower Society in good standing, those individuals that have left the organization. It really is our responsibility to look at them in love and empathy, reach out to them in compassion, because these persons have experienced some very, very unusual circumstances in their lives. They've come out of a hermetically sealed society. They are part of an organization that is oppressive, that is very demanding, legalistic, yes, and works-oriented. All of the things that we've discussed today can result in the breakdown of many individuals. Nervous breakdown, mental illness, emotional distress, these things we've talked about. So I think as Christian persons, we should find it within our hearts to look upon these persons really as victims.